3, 2, 4. All right, where'd you eat the other day?
Hold on. Welcome to the third episode of Outdoor Addictions. Glad y'all with us today. So we're still new at this. We figured it out as we go.
That's right.
Bear with us.
We're getting a hang of it like a bunch of monkeys.
Getting hung on the
that's right.
We got with us today Kavitz, Land Pro here in the office. Kris Xifos, also Land Pro.
He's Land Pro too?
He's Land Pro too. He sure is. And then John Bass. John's a good friend of ours.
I'm not a Land Pro.
He's not a Land. He is not a Land Pro.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
He's a pro land.
That's right.
But anyway, what y'all been up to, Kris? I heard you got an interesting story you want to tell us.
Yeah, I took Lane on a date to this place in Vicksburg called 10 South Rooftop, and I mean, it was a fine eating establishment. I'm not much on heights either, to be honest with you. And I was, you know how when you go to the beach and you stay in a condo and you open a window, it's like hurricane force winds. They tell you don't open the front door and the back window, you just get sucked out. I was worried. That's how.
You ain't gonna get sucked.
That's right. I'm telling you, I put on a harness and cable strap, you know. But anyways, it wasn't like that. It was just nice. You see, you go all the way up to the top of the Trustmark building in Vicksburg, and it's a really beautiful restaurant up there. It looks out over the Mississippi River. You can see the bridge to your left, and where the river bends and comes in, and you're right by a little chute where the barges and stuff are coming up and down. And everything from the atmosphere to the food, which is pretty impeccable. And wasn't that long of a wait. We got there at what I call prime time, supper time, about 6:30. We usually try to eat with the Wheel of Fortune crowd. That way we can get in and out by 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's old.
That's right. I enjoy that. But we had to get a babysitter and all that jazz, you know, to get up there. So by the time we got there, it was prime time, supper time. So we waited about 30 minutes or so, which wasn't bad either. And we got a beautiful spot, just a little 2-chair table right on the edge, looking out. They retracted the roof back, and we just sat there and had an amazing appetizer, an amazing, well, I tell you what, I'll just go ahead and tell you, make you hungry. We got about an hour and a half for when I eat supper. I got 2 kids, so you eat early. We had pimento and cheese, and these little grilled chips for an appetizer. I had ribeye, medium rare. That's the only way me and eat it. And it was sitting on top of mashed potatoes, and it had green beans, and Lane got the grilled pork chop, and it had onion rings on top of it. And then for dessert, never had it. We had chocolate bread pudding. It had little butterscotches in it, covered in chocolate sauce. And one is big enough for both of us. They brought 2 little spoons out like we just shared. Yeah, that's right. We shared
a little date.
A little date. And
all right, you sit here and talk about all this. You're responsible for that 5 pounds I just put
that's
on.
right.
Just listen to it.
All I'm telling you is, go to Vicksburg, go to that restaurant. You won't regret it. Y'all need to take
that is not your kind of place.
Nice. Why? Because hey, listen, I got to talk to you about throwing those $2 words in 50-cent conversation. Impeccable.
I thought the same thing when you said that. I was like, I ain't saying nothing.
How many syllables is there in that word?
Well, I thought the same thing, but I was like, I'm not saying nothing.
You thought I was speaking French or something.
Like, I'm the guest here.
Yeah,
Oh, my
impeccable.
God. Well, that does sound good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Where'd you eat, Bruce?
I think I ate at Sonic.
All right.
Enjoyed every bite of it too. It's fun. So
How's that diet going?
that's going okay. Doing the best I can.
Yeah.
You won't get blown out the window either, so.
No, I won't.
Yeah.
I won't either.
No, will.
Take a strong wind when we
A good gust.
That's okay. All right, we're going to talk today a little bit about improving land for wildlife. John, I think, has some experience in this. Probably he's owned several. You name it, this guy has done it.
We have done a lot in radio in respect to wildlife, creating habitat. But every property, let me say every property, every person and every property is different. That's right. You know, you might want to do for whitetail, you might want to do for quail, you might want to do for
turkey.
No,
You
not turkeys.
can't hit them when you want to
Yeah,
hit
not
'em.
turkeys.
I can look at it.
If Keith had
Can't
a
miss a
place
look.
of turkey, if he had land that had turkeys on it, it'd be plenty of turkeys.
Yeah, so I mean, you might could
Same
have
thing with
turkeys.
Bruce and
That's
Dick.
lazy. Oh, that's Keith. That's all right.
For those of you who don't know, Keith missed, of course, we hadn't shared this, he missed one, we called up to him, he missed one. And then I shot at it twice running away.
He missed it twice.
I missed it twice, so,
But
but I
So
figured,
what
what
you're
the heck,
saying is turkeys would do good on y'all's property.
it would
That's right.
do quite well, because these have done quite well. Now, they probably had a pellet or two in them, I bet.
they're sore.
They sold, may not be dead, but they sold.
You know, talking about like the different wildlife, like you were just talking about getting ready for planting some fields for doves.
That's right.
So every property and every person is a little different on what they're doing.
So we're talking today a little bit specifically about how to improve habitat for whitetail deer. And what I'd like to do is just,
I would just regular wildlife.
well, it could be anything, but we're gonna say specifically for whitetail deer, we're gonna use my property as an example. Several years ago, I bought 80 acres right here in Lincoln County, just outside of Brookhaven. And tell you a little bit about the place. The main hardwood was cut off of it. Most of the hardwood was cut off of it probably about a decade ago. And so what's left is some scattered pine, some hardwood mix in there that's come up since then. But this is just a thicket. And it's got a lot of privet hedge in it. And what trees are there, the canopy's closed and not a lot of sunlight's reaching the ground. So you got some parts of the property that are pretty thick and offer good cover, but most of it is pretty open underneath. And you know what I'm talking about when you walk into a property. John, you just sold one recently out here in Evans Loop like that. Pine
Pine
plantation.
plantation.
And you walk into it, it's just like carpet. It's beautiful when you walk through a property like that,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It looks good.
But you can see from one side to the other
You
side
can
of
see
it.
200 yards.
And the deer's not hiding in there.
No, it's not holding deer. So we got to remember that what looks appealing to us is not really what's appealing to wildlife, especially whitetail deer. They need thick cover. And so anyway, that's what my place looks like. It's on one side of the creek, it's good hardwood timber. On the other side, it's just thick privet hedge that's the canopy's closed, no sunlight reaching the ground. So we're going to talk about how to improve that particular property.
You had a vulture come in last year
I
and
did.
mulch up part of it.
And I'm gonna tell you, you would not believe what that looks like now. I did, John's right, I had a guy, as a friend of his actually, who came out and put a forestry mulcher on it. Of course, when he first did it, it was just wide open. But now, that young vegetation's about waist high, and it's thick, and this looks good. And I've been out there several times, actually, in recent days, to go out there to check on the dogs and stuff, and there'd be a deer standing there browsing.
Cause that's the kind of what they like.
That's what they like.
In fact, I bet whenever after they did the mulching and it just started coming back up, I bet it was deer out there every night.
Every single night. You come home after dark, you can not see, pull the driveway, you see a deer.
Yeah, cause that's what they're looking for to eat.
That's right. And so the rest of the property, the canopy's closed, you don't have that young vegetation in there. You just have just whatever tree's there. So anyway, we're gonna talk a little bit about how to do that. But before we get started with that, one of the things we recommend is you gotta set a goal. What you gotta have an idea of what you want, right? So,
We do.
all right, so in my case, here's three things that I want. Basically, what I want is I want to create bedding area on my property that will hold deer year round. That's what I want. I want the deer to want to stay on my property. Number two, I want to create a good food source other than a food plot, which is what we're good at doing, right? We're good at planting food plots. But if you bought, we're talking the other day with John, you bought fertilizer and lime lately,
Can't afford it.
spend a fortune doing that. And Chris, I don't know if y'all did that for your sunflowers.
Yeah, we put a ton of, literally a ton on the field. And we get ready to do it again this weekend for the other side where we're doing the middle of that, but
It can run into some money.
that's right.
So, obviously I want to produce some good forage for deer other than a food plot. It doesn't cost anything to do.
You could take like where you mulched and maybe this year go over and mulch another section, and keep
Do it in
it,
sections,
keep it where every year, well, once you get where you can bush hog it, let a section may go 3 years or something, get up and come back and bush hog it, rotate it.
That's right.
That'd be something good to hold deer and give them, browse to eat.
So again, my goal is number one, I want deer to stay on my property more. Number two, I want to produce good food. so that they'll have something good to eat while they're on their property.
Feed
And
them some
number,
sweet feed,
Yeah.
cow.
You know, I saw a show on the History Channel the other day. It was this island in Greece. They collected bird food for fertilizer.
Really?
They had these, it was on the side of this thing. Lane was watching it with me, so I know I'm not dreaming. And they had these little small white buildings. And the birds would just land in there and feed and just,
I was gonna say, how they collect it?
just spray all in there while they're in there eating.
I had a vision of somebody with a can.
That is
of
not,
bird.
that is not the job. That is not the job anybody around
The
here
bird
wants.
poop catcher, you know? But no, they would go in there and they would shovel it out of those white buildings and go and use it. And, you know, as high as triple 13 is,
That's a good one.
I'm gonna start, you know.
For a long period of time, chicken litter's always been good.
That's right. And I live right next to a big chicken farm. We get spread truck.
You know, I was talking to Bruce earlier about, we had a place where we had a bunch of bulls in the pen, had a big feeder out there. When we moved the bulls from out of there, we still a good bit of feed in the feeder. And you could see deer tracks, like at the rain.
Oh, yeah.
The deer were coming there every night and eating the sweet cow feed out of there. So that's the way you can get you some sweet feed.
Well, that's true. All that costs money too. I'm
That's
trying to
right.
avoid that. I'm trying to provide some good forage for nothing.
The easiest thing you can do
Get on your praying knees.
is get you a good crossbow, get you a good night sight. You ain't gotta worry about all that planting food plots and all that. You go down the road and shoot a deer. Nobody here, that's a crossbow.
Disclaimer, if the NW.
Yeah, I am not recommending anybody do this, I'm just saying what you could do. What about it? Have you
Welcome
ever
to
done that?
illegal
I
outdoor
had a
addiction.
neighbor told me years ago, yeah, I'll take bow hunt with me. He said, I guarantee you we'll get some deer. I said, okay. He said, go bow hunting. I said, okay. He said, the next full moon night, meet me. He said, that full moon night, it's like hunting in broad daylight. I said, no, I better not do that.
Now they've got the infrared sights and all, you know, you can just
Yeah.
see like daylight.
Oh, a few years from now, you'll be drone hunting, I guarantee it.
Let us go on the record now, saying right now, we do not recommend.
Nor condone.
It was just an idea.
But the last goal I wanna do, and this is a big one, y'all, it may sound simple, but it's a big one. I actually wanna be able to kill a good deer on my property.
That's gonna
During
depend on,
daylight, during daylight.
that's gonna depend on a lot of things.
All right, but it increases the odds that you're gonna see a mature whitetail while you're hunting.
You're right, cause the thicker you got, the more deer you got on the property, the better chance you are of having a big one.
You're gonna be there, and that's what you want. You want that food, you want that cover, you want them to wanna spend time on your property. So those are that's my goal, is to provide food, cover, and I wanna be able to eventually harvest some pretty good deer. You know, when I say pretty good, I'm being realistic. I mean, you know, just a good 3.5, 4.5-year-old deer. If you get one that happens to be older, that's fine. Now, that can be anywhere from an 8-point to 14-point, right?
Did you get that one at night or the daytime?
We won't talk about that.
Okay. It's just a good look when I just happened to look back and see it.
No, I'm kidding. That deer is unique. You ever heard from Rassler? They used to use Rassler saying he's from parts unknown. That's what that deer is. He's from parts unknown. It's a long story. So,
We may not wanna talk about it
Next episode.
because we're on tape now. Don't incriminate nobody.
that's exactly right. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about how to do this, Kris. Before we do, we gotta start taking inventory on what, you know, we gotta start gathering information. So what
That's
is some of
right.
the information? Kris?
Well, you wanna find out the open ground on your place, where your water sources are, cause deer gotta do what? Drink, right?
Right.
You talked earlier about, you gotta stop thinking like a hunter, like a human, and start thinking like a deer. If you gotta walk around this place a day and night, you gotta sleep there, you gotta eat there, drink there, live there, raise your family there.
That's right.
You want everything you need there, because what do you hear everybody saying their main problem is, man, I got deer on the camera all night long, eating this, eating that, and then they move to so-and-so's place, or they go here during the day, or they do that. Well, what are they doing? What do they have, or what are you not doing that's making them do that?
That's right. And so if you have any open ground on your property, such as an old fallow field, or it may be an old pasture. You know, one of the properties that Keith and I turkey hunted on was mainly some open pasture, right? Some old overgrown pasture. But not only does it offer good turkey hunting, it offers good deer hunting too. But the key is it's not pressured, and you'd be surprised at how many forbs and good food are in that open field. So, and we'll talk in a minute about how to improve those open fields, and one of those ways is through Scribe Fire, which is a great tool. So, all right, are there any older stands of hardwood on your property, such as white oak and hickory and sweet gum, all those things that we see here in the South, right?
White oaks are gonna help you.
White oaks
Gum
are
are
gonna help.
not.
One thing I have learned about white oaks, when it talks about, again, like John, you talk about the forestry mulcher. What you're doing is, let me just explain this real, kind of back up and see the big picture. Imagine if you have a good stand of hardwood that's got a mixture of hickory, white oak, red oak, sweet gum, birch trees. That's what we have here in Mississippi, right? All across the southeast part of the country. But what would it be like if you go in there and select some of those trees, those lesser desirable trees, such as sweet gum, maybe even some of the hickory, maybe even some of the red oak and white oak if they're too close together. Take out those trees, leave the ones you want, the bigger mature trees.
That would help their canopy expand where you have
Canopy
more
now gets more
acres.
sunlight, produces more acres, and then what happens to all that ground? Now it's exposed to sunlight, and it grows up in that same briars and stuff that we got with forestry mulcher, right?
Yeah.
So now you've created what I call an oak savanna. When I say savanna, it's like an open grassland almost. That produces food and it produces cover. And you still got your oak trees scattered about, which are now getting more sunlight, which in theory they should start producing more acres, right?
Right.
So now you're creating something that makes it a lot easier to hunt. And one thing I have learned, I actually heard this not long ago on the radio, and I didn't know this. One of the hardest things about deer hunting is getting a steady wind in your favor. And it's hard to do that. And one of the things that I learned after listening to a couple other podcasts, actually, it talked about that you actually get a more predictable wind in an oak savanna position than you do in just a hardwood. In other words, if it's just a hardwood ridge, and it's got hills and hollows, the wind will just swirl through that. But if you've got an open area, the wind is a little more predictable. Does that make sense? It doesn't, it's like water running through a river.
It's got one way to go.
It's got one way to go.
That's right.
If it's got debris in the river, it's gonna form these eddies and curve, and the wind does the same thing. So if you got a more open area, the wind is more predictable. Therefore, in theory, you should have a better chance to harvest a deer. Does that make sense?
If you say so.
It makes sense to me.
That's all that matters.
That's right.
Well, you're talking about cover and forbs and things coming up. I mean, we kind of got different variations of land that we're hunting on here. I mean, you're hunting on some of y'all's family's land.
Right.
He got some pretty hardwoods on his place.
I was gonna tell you, I mean, we came up right with those white oaks we found, and what was right at the base of them, the creek, and we found the most beautiful deer crossing.
Oh, yeah, it's perfect.
Right at the base of those big old oak trees.
Pretty beautiful.
John's got land scattered around the area, and he's got his own, but your owners. What I hunt predominantly is, there's another one of those 50-cent words, or $2 words, but is lease. I mean, we've got a hunting lease, 16th section land.
Primarily pine.
Primarily.
And you're
plantation
limited.
pine. We're
You're
limited
limited
in
what
what
you
we
can
can
do.
do.
Right.
Well, what can you do in a situation like that?
Well, really, Keith, you know that better than I do. There's really not a whole lot you can do in terms of manipulating somebody else's property.
We can't just jump out there and burn it.
Right, you can't do
The
that.
only thing we've got an option to do is something I have found is good. A lot of times, the Forest Service, the county's not good about bringing people in there to bush hog. They'll cut the pine timber out, get it in Plantation Road, and it grows up. Well, we got a part that, people south of us have got a part of the same woods that we're in. And theirs is growing up high and thick, but you can bush hog it. And we don't do a lot of disking or planting in there, but we'll take a bush hog, and a lot of times you get gum trees and just useless trees coming up there and aren't any good. And what we have done is take a bush hog, run it down through there and keep it a couple of feet, 2 or 3 feet off the ground and cut that back. Well, that'll allow some more sunlight to get to the ground and you start getting more, huckleberries, not blueberries, but, get good forbs coming up.
Right.
And that'll renew the habitat and more deer start coming through. We've got one area there that, deer travel through a lot on us, crossing the railroad track, coming through.
Yeah, and one thing they did, I know what you're talking about 3 or 4 years ago, they came in and cut some of the timber in there, right?
Yeah,
Which allows some of that sunlight to reach the ground. Which now it's grown up in briars, all these forbs and different things, and that's one reason why you probably see more deer.
that's right. We'll open ours up a little more, but that south of us, they don't have good access to get to that side of the railroad track for them. And deer will be laying up in there. A lot of times they'll come out of there, come through this. And we don't keep it cleaned out completely, but we got it cleaned out enough that we can see anything coming through there.
That's right.
And it produces food and some shelter for them.
That's right.
But they'll come through there and there's one good crossing right there right now from us, and it has been a good spot.
Do you ever hunt on the railroad tracks?
Do not.
That's good. It's illegal.
But we do cross them.
I hear a train.
That's not exactly legal.
All right, so if you got any closed canopy, I mean, you got like on my place, there's a lot of closed canopy. I gotta let that sunlight reach the ground. Part of the things I wanna do is have my timber cut thin and leave some of that oak trees and things.
Yeah,
some of
leave
that-
your big hard,
Right.
big oak
Right,
tree.
leave all that. But timber market's not real good right now, and
It's hard to get someone to
It's
cut.
hard to get someone to cut
Especially
it.
we don't have a big piece.
That's right. And in my case, I got 80 acres. So, the only way I'm gonna get a logger to come in there is someone who's already working fairly close by.
Right.
I got a little time, they can run over it next week.
Your 80 acres is thin anyway.
It's really thin. It's not like it's mature,
Yeah,
marketable
it's really
timber on
thin.
it. But I need to do something to make it better. So, anyway, that's important.
And like you were talking about with the canopy, that pine trees and the floor, just a carpet of pine straw, it looks clean and nice.
Oh, it looks great.
But there's nothing gonna be in there but some stray dogs coming to your dog food bowl. That's the only thing you're gonna have.
That's about right.
Yeah, and I remember, coming up learning about hunting, you used to walk into a place where it was beautiful woods, you could see for miles down through
Right.
there. Oh, I'm hunting here, you don't see anything.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
It takes time to learn.
If you're hunting with me and you're a little kid and you don't know anything, that's where I'm putting.
The first deer I ever killed, I was sitting under a white oak tree.
Really?
Yep, killed with a shotgun.
Well, I'll bet. You walked up to the white oak tree?
We walked up, I was sitting under a big white, it was opening with a creek.
Night or day.
It was day. It was in the morning, really. But,
still dark.
It had to be out there, that was shotgun.
Was it 2 a.m. or was it?
it was like I say, it was a big white oak, I was sitting there and there was a big creek, and the deer come and jumped across the creek, just probably 30 yards from me. I shot with a shotgun. The 8-point, first deer ever killed. Then after that, I was like, well, I ain't seeing bigger deer, After I went several years, cause I was 7 probably, 7 or 8. But that was the first deer I ever killed, but I was sitting under a white oak tree.
Yeah, what my stand's gonna be.
Chris got a good crossing in his place that we found turkey hunting. I tell you what, that'd be a great place to set up during bow season.
That's right.
Spring and fall.
That's where I'm gonna be.
And now they're gonna have that early season bow hunt.
September, yeah.
For deer and velvet, so that's gonna be nice.
Have they put the days out yet?
Yeah, it's, I can't remember the exact, I think it's 3 days, maybe it's 5 days, but it's mid-September.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact date. For those of you who don't know.
1st of September, we're blasting those doves out of the sky.
There you go, yeah.
Messing up.
You gotta find a time to gator hunt in there too.
Oh, that's right. Will do, I'm doing that. That's nighttime deal there.
You dove hunt during the day, gator hunt at night. You sleep later, right?
I'll bring us a bag of bacon wrapped dove for the boat. Munch on.
There you go.
You can sleep when you're dead.
That's right. That's right.
But for those of you who haven't heard, the state of Mississippi is gonna offer a first ever velvet hunt for whitetails. And, anyway, go to your state regulations website, check it out.
Whatever zone you're in,
Yeah.
and,
Get more information, but it's gonna be the first ever. That's exciting to be able to have a chance to harvest a whitetail full velvet.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often.
what's gonna be nice to finally have our NDA banquet, right around where it's time to actually hunt deer,
That's
not
exactly right.
2 months later.
Our NDA banquet's always the end of
August,
August.
1st of September, so it's gonna be nice to be able to,
Good time.
and we'll generate some guys to come in there,
All right, another thing to consider on your property is what does the surrounding property look like? What does it have? Because it's important to know that, right? Because whatever they have, maybe you want to provide something different.
That's true.
Or if it's Uncle John and if it's brown, it's down,
There you go.
you wanna do your best to get them on your place.
You want to pull deer on your property.
Right.
And
You would do that though, provide them food,
you're right.
cover.
If you got a good water source like Kris
You got a
talked
creek,
about,
you got a
there's
creek
on
to your
it.
place.
Yeah, you got a creek on it. If you got a pond or any type, if you don't, you might want to consider putting a water source of some type.
That's right.
But the main thing is know what your property looks like. And I'm gonna give them a shout out. Onex Hunt. These Onex maps are fantastic, aren't they? We use those things every single day.
And you're talking about $99 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth it.
It's very affordable, and there's so much you can do. Keith and I just upgraded ours to premium not long ago.
How much is that?
It's the elite.
It's the elite, that's
Yeah.
it, it's the elite, and you get the out of state, now you can get any state.
Oh, yeah, well, that's mine, because I was in Kentucky on my deer hunt.
Okay.
And I've saved some of those deer stands where I was hunting on my own.
You didn't drop a pin down there, did you?
I named it. I'm gonna be knocking on them farmer doors.
Name it.
I was here.
Short enough, good place.
Showing up, I was here a few years ago.
You never know. But we used it on the alligator hunt, because dropping a pin on where we were at and making sure, because you're hunting. We didn't talk about this on the alligator episode, but you're hunting on Old River over there. You're hunting Louisiana, Mississippi. You got to make sure.
You gotta make sure you're in the right state.
That's right. That you're not, because you look at that Onyx app and that white line. I mean, you can think that that's Mississippi and that's Louisiana, and that may be Mississippi and that may be Louisiana. And so it came in handy with that too.
But yeah, you need to know what's on your neighbor's property. And I'm not saying you need to go over there and look, but what you need to do is look on these satellite maps and.
Settle them and drive by.
That's
Do
right.
one road, see what they got.
That's right.
They run a drone of it.
Yeah.
Run drone of it.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do it. But the whole point is whatever they have, maybe you offer something different. And that's the whole point is, look at it, see what's there. On my property, I'll tell you, on two sides, it's cut over. They clear cut the timber 3 years ago on both sides. And so there's plenty of bedding area on those tracts of land, which makes sense. In the last 2 or 3 years, I'm seeing fewer and fewer deer. Well, I'm thinking what's happening is they're bedding on the neighbor's property. Because they have all that food, all that cover, has everything. I put trail cameras out and I see pictures of deer, obviously, but not seeing them during those daylight hours.
Have a long-term plan though, eventually those properties are gonna grow up and you
That's
keep
right.
yours, consistent.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'll add, get with your neighbor and come up with a plan.
Yeah, that's a good
Go
point.
over there and knock on the door and say, look, this is our goal. We want to raise quality aged bucks and have good deer around here. This is what I'm doing. Can we get together on something?
Yeah.
And let's do this together.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, you can forge that good relationship. And even if it's not where you live every day, but if it's land you own somewhere else, just get in together with them and create that plan, and then everybody's benefit.
Yeah, well, in the NDA, you're talking about cooperative, where you do exactly that. You with all your
Protect your
neighbors.
neighbors.
You
That's
might
right.
have 150 acres here, neighbor may have 200, next guy may have 300. If you get all that land, everybody working toward the same goal.
You can do something.
That's
man.
right.
You can make a difference. And here's the thing, everybody gets to enjoy it. Everybody gets to enjoy it.
It's hard to do something just on like 88%.
It is,
You
right.
can-
It's very
If
hard.
you could get, like you say, cooperative with all your neighbors, could raise some good deer.
But having said that, don't let that discourage you. If your neighbors don't want to
That's
cooperate,
right.
then still do what you can do.
Yeah, do what you can do.
Well, I will add that even on 80 acres, doing what you're supposed to do, you'll attract deer.
Oh, yeah,
I don't care if your
absolutely.
next door neighbor is just completely belligerent in whatever.
Right.
Stay the course.
All right, next thing to evaluate is, set trail cameras out and get a good inventory of what's there. And, that is a great tool.
With heat vibrating now.
Okay. That's a great tool for, knowing what's deer's there. And I'll tell you that just the last couple of years, what I've experienced is early season, I would say from September to early November, maybe just before Thanksgiving. And here in Mississippi, our rifle season opens the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Yes. So I would get pictures of mature deer, but as the season progresses, they start showing up less and less. And I think I know what's happening. Of course, they're moving around. There's no rut, they're going no telling where. But on the same note, it could be another mature deer from another farm that's on my property. But I think it's because I have lack of cover, lack of food that time of year. I may have a food plot or something, but trail camera pictures indicate that deer are coming during nighttime. They're not coming to that food plot during the day. At least they're not on my place. And so, you gotta do something different. What's the definition of insanity, Keith? You ever heard that?
Keep doing the same thing over and over and
Expecting different
expecting
results.
different results.
Yep.
I've been accused of that. And you're not the only one that's accused me of it.
I was gonna say what was her name, but it's called you out.
I used to be crazy.
Don't pick on him.
I ain't gonna pick on Keith. I just
See
figured.
that buttonhole right there? The butterflies used to come out of it.
You're talking about trail cameras. They're high dollar, but these cell phone cameras are game changers.
That's the way it goes.
I mean, because going in like old school every 2 or 3 days and leaving your scent, making a trail, getting that SD card out and all this other stuff. I mean, you don't even have to go in there.
No, you don't.
And if you got, like you and I were talking the other day, and I gotta get that solar panel to you, but if you got a solar panel on your camera,
I know where 2 cameras are right now. You can get them.
Yeah.
Yep, the guy's trespassing.
oh, that's right, the guy down there in Natchez.
Yeah. Tell us what could happen.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get it. Chris, you can get it.
Tell me what they are.
You can go get them, I know it.
But put a solar panel on there, and you're never, and I'm telling you, they take some beatings, and they're tough.
Yeah, it really was a game changer as far as camera.
Yeah, and they got them to where you can do a real time deal. Push your button, and they'll take your picture when standing there now. And it may be a monster deer, it may be your buddy with his drawers down trying to be funny.
You could be sitting there eating supper and see the big deer on the camera and right there and get it.
That's right.
Well, that's the big trend nowadays. A lot of states are making it illegal to use.
Yeah, I think in Missouri, is Missouri one of them?
Well,
I can't remember.
I think Arizona.
Arizona.
Maybe Mexico, but I'm afraid that's gonna be the trend.
Y'all are gonna get our podcast banned in Missouri and New Mexico.
Well, hey, we have to check. We don't know. We're
Arizona?
just speculating. Yeah.
We don't know.
We're headed out to Arizona to do some quail hunting.
We love all states.
Oh, you really?
Well, we gotta plan it. I mean, let's talk about it.
I was like, you going out there? All right. Some of the other ways to improve your habitat, obviously, is through prescribed fire. And I've learned there's 2 different types of prescribed fires. The dormant season burn, which is usually early in the year, right? It's right after winter, it's February, March, April. It's before cleanup, basically. But I've learned that what that does is it encourages grasses to grow, which is good. Grasses are good, right? I mean, that produces a lot of cover, especially for fawns in early summer. It does help. But your burns that give you the most benefit is the growing season burns. And that's always held during the hot part of the year, July, August, September. And obviously those kind of fires you get in trouble.
Yeah.
You gotta be real careful about burning them that time of year.
Know where your local volunteer fire department is.
Well, in some cases, you have to have a permit to burn, so we're not suggesting you go out there and just light the whole hillside on
Check with
fire.
the forester first.
Yes, you need to
Well,
check.
and they'll come out and help you do
They
that.
will.
And if something happens, that, you know, they're
Well,
there.
they've got the equipment there ready
That's
to
right.
take care
That's
of it.
exactly right.
But you actually get different results. What happens there is if you do a warming on a growing season burn, it actually, that fire is really hot compared to the dormant season burn. And that will kill, it kills everything. It'll kill sweet gum, hickory, it'll kill everything, right? Pine tree especially, it'll burn it all the way out to the top.
Yeah.
But that eliminates some of these species you don't want, such as sweet
Yeah.
gum and hickory and things like that. So that's just less tree that you have to cut down yourself or spray with herbicide, and a fire will knock it out. And then it comes back, and what it does in the growing season burn, instead of encouraging grasses, it encourages spores, which we look at as just weeds.
Right.
But really, that is what deer need to flourish, right, Keith? We've learned that through NDA and
Yeah,
other.
we went to a educational thing up
Field
in
day.
Pike County manufacturing, not manufacturing, but up in
WMA.
management area. And they taught us some things that I never would have thought. Some of the things they talked about forward the deer would eat. Verbena was the one that really stood out in my mind. It's got a purple flower and a square stalk on it. That stalk is
Stem.
woody.
Very woody.
And they said, deer love it. That's stuff that I went back to my camp and found it. And if I hadn't been to that
You'd never.
that day, we need to bush hog.
Never noticed it. You just think of it as it's growing up in a thicket. It looks terrible. Well, that's good for deer, right? It's good for wildlife in general. It provides cover for quail, turkey, rabbits, you name it. I mean,
And you
it helps
can, and
everything.
you can root that stuff and put it in areas where you don't have it.
You can.
You can clip those clippings off and just go stab them in the ground. You'd be surprised how resilient they are.
That's right. So fire is a great way, and what I love most about fire is that there's no cost involved other than your time. Now, I would recommend you get some friends, some family to go out there with you, and don't try to do it all by yourself. Get in the forestry, get the forestry commission, that's fine.
Or there's people I told you the other day that you can hire to do.
Yeah, there are people who are licensed to do.
That's right.
Dry burns.
That's right.
When I thought my place was on fire and I went to my neighbors, there was a whole crew over there with rakes and blowers and they did it right.
They're working.
That's right.
You know, a blower will work better on a grass fire than anything.
Really.
It will.
Push it on through.
Well, anything else, guys, y'all can think of?
We keep talking about NDA. We want to tell everybody what that stands for. You know, we went from the QDMA shift to the NDA.
Yeah, QDMA is Quality Deer Management Association, and about
COVID.
2 years ago, prior to COVID,
Yep.
or actually during COVID,
Because of COVID.
because of COVID, it consolidated with an organization called the National Deer Association.
I think that was a Deer Alliance.
National Deer Alliance, that's right.
Right.
So the two organizations merged into what's now called National Deer Association.
I think I
which
was
is
like
NDA.
QDNA.
Yeah, that'll sound better.
That's right.
You're right, there you go. And, the difference is they went from being specifically for whitetails to now it encompasses all deer species.
Right.
Mule
Red
deer,
deer,
coos deer,
axis.
yeah, everything. So, but that's not a bad thing.
Well, they were offended, you know. I saw a few mule deer, red deer protests out there.
Yeah, they had
Colorado, Colorado. We we want our genders and species represented.
Did you shoot them all?
No, we included them.
That's
Oh,
right.
Okay,
We're very inclusive.
okay. I figured y'all just shot them all.
Reached out to all of them and said, y'all come on board.
Come
So,
on back. That's right.
anyway, the National Deer Association is something that,
Alliance.
Yeah, Lions.
is that what it is?
I don't know.
It's
National-
I ain't got
Association.
It
It's
was a
association.
National Deer Alliance.
Well, that makes it feel like
National
Alliance, like a superhero.
Yeah, it's like superhero.
That's right. Here comes the NDA.
National Deer Association, we all believe in it. I mean, I do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is a really good
That's
organization.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
it really is. And we have a branch here in Southwest Mississippi called the Southwest Mississippi National Deer Association branch. So
He's the
Are
president
you,
of
are you a
the
member of that?
I'm a member of it.
He was the president of it at one
So
time.
you still Mr. Prez?
Yes, until you decide to take it
Woo!
over.
You on the spot.
You vice
You
president?
know, my wife listens to
He
this.
is vice president.
We got the president and the vice president here.
Gracious alive.
That's cause no one else would do it. But yeah, we're in our, how many years we been doing this, Keith? Been about 11 years, I bet.
Something like
11,
that.
12 years. But we have a banquet coming up in, I think it's August the 19th, oh no, 18th. Wildlife Expo is the 19th and 20th.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a banquet on the 18th. Last year we had a gun bash, very successful. So I'm thinking we might go that same direction this year as well, so. Anyway,
Did you win any of the guns?
no, I did not.
Okay, I want to be sure.
The conflict of interest.
What I was thinking.
I didn't win any.
Okay, I was gonna ask.
I never do.
I get chances on stuff all the time. I never win.
Man,
so.
I stocked up one year. I got bow, target, game camera. You remember that year?
Yeah, you did
I
good.
still up with that Bear Ultra bow. It's pretty good bow.
That's good. Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah. And then next year we got the crossbow. Good hunt with it.
Yeah, I need to sit by you next
Man,
time.
just rub a little big juju on it. We gonna get a lottery ticket. They're drawing tonight.
All right, y'all, thank you for listening to this week's episode. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Don't let us forget to get out of here without shouting out our season sponsor.
That's right.
Diamond J Meat Market Deer Processing here in Brookhaven has been awesome enough to sponsor our entire podcast season this year. So it's grilling season.
It is.
I mean,
Yeah, I was by
Fixing to
there,
be Memorial
by there
Day.
last
Yeah.
week, picked up a couple of steaks.
yeah, it is. I
Will did me up right.
That's right. I called a buddy. Matter of fact, the guy that does all my taxidermy. So told him to come on over Friday night and I throw some steaks on the grill, and he ain't met my newest baby yet. So, but it's grilling season. The Diamond J Meat Market Deer Processing here in Brookhaven, Mississippi. Big thanks to those guys. And what else?
Thank y'all. Appreciate
We
you.
appreciate it.
Stay addicted.
To the outdoors.
Till next time, we'll see you in the outdoors.
That's right. You got about 12
You're a
sign-offs.
professional.
We'll be like Ron Burgundy. You ever watch Anchorman?
You're a professional.
Stay classy.
Come out pretty good, bro.
Yeah.
Maybe.
42 minutes.